here today with the Cultures of Excellence Service Line team, and we'd like to share some thoughts on Magnet Conference. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to Marky Medeiros, who is the Service Line Director for Cultures of Excellence, Sara Sullens, Amber Orton, and Ruth Kitzmiller as a consultant, as consultants in the service line. So without further ado, let's talk about some reflections from our prior experiences with Magnet conferences. Marky, tell us about your very first Magnet conference.
Yes, I love to tell this story, and I tell it often to my colleagues when I'm out on the road, but my first Magnet conference was in 2002, and it was at the Mayo Clinic, and at that point in time there was 500 nurses that attended the conference, and I was one of the few staff nurses there. Most of them were nursing directors, chief nursing officers, and people that were in important positions, not really staff nurses at the time. And I remember being at the conference and knowing that this was gonna be huge. I remember calling home and telling people, I don't know what this is, but this is gonna be really big. And how many years later, almost, probably 20 plus years later, last year's conference, we had over 14,000 nurses. So it was great seeing it when it was fairly small, and it's been amazing to watch it grow.
That's an amazing story. What about, Amber, let me put this question to you. What would you advise a brand new person going to the conference, never been there, how can they make the most of that conference? Because it is overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's such a great opportunity to learn, to network, to really get inspired, but it can also be very overwhelming. Like you said, 14,000 nurses, a lot of things going on. So a couple things I think of is, first, you got to plan ahead. Look at the agenda, look at the different sessions that are being offered, the posters that are being offered, and pick those things that really align with what you want to get out of the conference. What are your priorities and goals, or maybe opportunities in your organization? Next, network. Take some time. You never know who you're sitting next to, who you're standing in line next to, and take that opportunity to really strike up a conversation, because that could end up being a very valuable connection down the road, and an opportunity to be mentored and to grow. I think also, I personally find it a bit helpful if I, after each session that I attend or a poster that I look at, to just kind of briefly summarize my key takeaways right then. Well, it's fresh on my mind. And that makes it easier when you go back to your organization to kind of share what you learned in an easy way. And then lastly, make the most of the exhibit hall. Stop by and see us. We're at 2522, and you can really get to know us and learn how we can support you and your organization.
Excellent pointers. I appreciate that. One of the biggest roles, or the most exciting portion of the Magnet Conference, is the celebration of the new Magnet organizations, as well as the redesignations. And that is a lot of responsibility for a Magnet program director to coordinate, especially if you're bringing a large group. Ruth, talk to us about how you would coach a new MPD, first time walking the stage. What should they do?
Start early, for sure. Those individuals that are going to go with you, have meetings with them, prepare them ahead of time. As we've said, 14,000 people. That's a lot of people just to navigate and get around in a large conference center. So set the expectations. When you meet with folks, remember, you're representing our organization. So we want to make sure that we put our best foot forward. We want folks to say, oh my gosh, they're from XYZ hospital. Wow, that's amazing. So representing the organization is very important to remind them. What are they going to do with the information they obtain? Amber talked about summarizing right after you attend a session. Then what do they do with that? Who are they going to share that with? Make sure they know when you come back, we want you to tell us what you learned. So you're debriefing either after the session, on a daily basis. Sometimes folks will gather together. You'll see them all having coffee or dinner together to debrief about what they've learned. And most of all, for the Magnet program director, you are their colleague. You are not their parent. You are not responsible for keeping track of all of them for the 3 days that they're there. They are adults, so let them learn, let them be a sponge and have fun. You know, there's so many connections you can make at a Magnet conference. Amber is spot on. You know, just learn from people, get to know people, and soak it all up like a sponge.
Excellent. This is a general question before I move on to another question. You said it's important that individuals realize they represent their organization. You've all been Magnet program directors yourself. What does that mean? How do I know who you represent? And do you have any thoughts on, you know, is it a uniform that people wear or what? What would you recommend if individuals you're working with say, well, what should our people wear? Can they wear t-shirts? Can they wear whatever? What would you say to them? You've all been in those seats.
As a Magnet program director, I put together packets for my people that were attending the conference, because I think it's important to know probably high heel pumps are not necessary, and they're going to be walking several miles a day. And also, as they represent the organization, that the dress code is business casual. And of course, you may have a t-shirt day, or you may have a vest. People wear vests or jacket days, but otherwise it is business casual. So no torn jeans, and sometimes you have to outline that for people. But again, they're representing the organization, and also be aware of their actions as well. And some of that can all be laid out in an expectation pamphlet that outlines all that for them.
I think those are really great tips, because we know that from our experience of meeting people at the conference, these are the first professional conferences that many of the participants have gone to, so they don't know what to expect. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So along those lines, continuing, what 3 tips, Sara, might you give to a first-time attendee?
That's a great question. And as Marky kind of already alluded to, wear comfortable shoes, because there is tons of walking. Because there's, like the last conference had over 14,000 attendees, it's not like all the hotels are, a block away from the conference center. And usually the convention center itself is huge. Mm-hmm. And so, you can expect to walk several thousand steps. So make sure you bring comfortable shoes, and probably leave the pumps at home. The second thing is, because the conference is so inspiring, really, going to the celebratory events. So watching other organizations walk across the stage, even if you're early in your journey, or just coming to the conference to find out more about Magnet or PTE, but really being part of all those celebrations and the Nurse of the Year, because they're energizing, and it really kind of speaks to the work that you and your organization is doing, and that whole journey to excellence. And then along the lines of what Amber and Ruth said about soaking up sponges and really, trying to go to these sessions, is identify 2 to 3 things that you have learned, or a presentation you went to, and say, I want to take that back to my organization. I want to implement that. And really look at what are some of those 2 or 3 things that I can take back and we can implement when I get back home.
Excellent. I think everything that we've shared is very valuable, and as we close out our conversation, are there any last minute thoughts of, what's your one main key point you're going to tell people?
Yeah, I would share that as you go through the conference, as you look at all the posters, to think about what you could submit for the following year. Because oftentimes we hear, oh, we do that, or we do something like that, or we've got great outcomes. So think about what your organization can submit as an abstract to the Magnet or Pathway to Excellence conference.
I think that's an excellent point. And I will add, if you are indeed an individual who either did a poster or a podium presentation, you've got your professional article already outlined. So consider publication of your work. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We
See you
look
at the
forward to
conference.
meeting you at the conference. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.